Good afternoon and welcome to the December 8th Civil Service Commission meeting. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gregorian.
Here.
Commissioner Devine.
Here.
Commissioner Hatamian.
Here.
Chair Manukian.
Here.
And for the record, Commissioner Gantis is absent.
Hey. What's next?
Minutes.
Move for approval without reading.
Do I have a second? Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gregorian.
Yes.
Commissioner Devine.
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian. Yes. Chair Manukian.
Yes. What's next?
Oral communications.
Okay. Do we have any cards? Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, fill out a card. I see none. What's next?
Recruitment and examination status report.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a note and file item, and typically we have a brief cover memo indicating such, but let's see, we don't here. But essentially this reflects the recruitment and selection activity that is currently in process. It shows by each respective staff member the recruitments that are being conducted at various stages. It shows the open date, the close dates of the filing period, as well as any scheduled examinations. And ultimately our list, recruitments fall off of this list once the process has been completed and an eligibility list has been established. So again, this is a note and file item. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Any questions, Sean? Okay, I see none. What's next?
Eligible list established.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, once again, this is a note and file item. This reflects the eligible list that has been established since our last meeting. As you can see, we have three lists that have been established. They are each promotional, and according to the report, it indicates the number of applications received, as well as the far right column addresses the total number of candidates who successfully made it through that process and made it onto our eligibility list. The three are listed there. If you have questions about them or part of that those recruitment processes, I'd be happy to try and answer those questions for you.
Gentlemen, any question? I see none. What's next?
Presentation of Glendale Supervisory Academy and Glendale Leadership Academy classes of 2010.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, I'm very proud to present to you a portion of the two classes of our Supervisory Academy and Leadership Academy. This is not everyone, but essentially we do have a good cross-section of those who were recognized this year. Just to refresh your memory, and I know we've been doing this for a few years, the Supervisory Academy is a training program that we put on, and it spans the entire calendar year. There are approximately, I believe, 10 or 11 classes that we have addressing some of the core competencies relating to supervision and management. And this would actually be our fifth graduating class. We started this in 2006, and we've done it for each year since then. In addition to the Supervisory Academy, this year we launched what we're calling the Glendale Leadership Academy. This is I would say, a more advanced class that we're putting on with our partners at Woodbury University. They gave us a very, very good deal to address our leadership needs. And these classes are done. There's a spring and a fall class, and again, we graduated approximately 25 out of each class in the Leadership Academy. So with that, I do wanted to see if we could recognize those graduates.
Absolutely. I was going to ask them if they can come up and just real quickly introduce yourselves. We're proud to have you guys here.
Not all at once.
Mr. Doyle, is by any chance Mr. City Manager is part of the leadership or supervisory?
We had a very nice graduation ceremony last week, and we made sure to recognize all the graduates. And so,
Fantastic.
we'll start here with.
My name is Courtney Maglio, and I'm a Community Services Coordinator for the Community Services and Parks Department.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Hello, my name is Sona Muradian, and I'm an Administrative Analyst with the Community Redevelopment and Housing Division.
Congratulations.
Good afternoon. My name is John Tuktalian. I'm the assistant to the city manager working at a city manager's office.
What was that name again?
John Tuktalian.
Congratulations.
Hello, I'm Pamela Gordon with Community Redevelopment and Housing, and I'm an admin analyst.
Congratulations.
Good evening. My name is Vak Mardikian. I'm a sergeant for the Glendale Police
Mardikian.
Department and patrol. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Good evening. My name is Rudy Melendez. I'm the custodial supervisor for Public Works Facilities Management Division.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'm Daniela Peters, and I'm the records supervisor in the police department.
Congratulations. Hey, there's a familiar face.
Good evening. I'm Mike Grant. I'm a senior assistant city attorney.
Congratulations, Mike.
Hi, good evening. I'm Moises Carrillo, senior community development supervisor with the Community Service and Parks Department. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good job.
Hello, I'm Eric Olson, senior electrical engineer for GWP in the substation engineering group.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Ahern from Public Works Engineering, and I'm the GIS analyst there.
Good job. Congratulations.
Good evening. I'm Jason Bradford, Budget Administrator, Finance Department.
Congratulations.
Good evening. Afshin Mukai, Purchasing Manager, Finance Department.
Good job. Congratulations.
Good evening. Audrey Sayan, Finance Department, Budget Team Admin Analyst.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Wen from Finance. I'm an admin analyst. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good evening. My name is Susan Hain. I'm a lieutenant with the police department, and I'm assigned to the Criminal Investigations Bureau.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good evening. My name is Lily Fong, County Services Administrator, Finance Department.
Congratulations, ma'am.
Good evening, members. My name is Anthony Della Soto, the Information Services Department Project Manager. Thank you.
Congrats.
Good evening. My name is Alexis Sales, IT Project Manager, Information Services Department.
Good job. Congratulations.
Hello, I'm Shea Eccleston-Bauer with the Public Works Department.
Congratulations.
Hello, I'm April Fitzpatrick, Public Works Administration.
Congrats.
Tad Dombrowski with Public Works Traffic and Transportation.
Congratulations. You know, you guys did a phenomenal job. And have we ever had a class this big? Or
no, this is two classes.
Two classes,
we only
okay.
did the Supervisory Academy before, but this is both Supervisory Academy and the Leadership Academy combined.
Fantastic. Congratulations again. Thank you for coming by. Okay, what's next?
Again, Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing us to recognize.
Oh, absolutely. It's our pleasure.
This is such an important program as far as our future, our succession planning, and it really makes a big difference to see that recognition. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. What's next?
Class specification for approval, budget series.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a request for approval for a new class specification series. This would be called the Budget Series. Currently, employees assigned to handle the budget function within the Finance Department are utilizing the generic title of Administrative Analyst and Senior Administrative Analyst. And we're trying to develop the budget team as a more specialized function and really recognize that it is truly a specialty as opposed to a sort of a generic position. A few years back, we established, it's kind of hard to believe, but for the first time ever, we established a budget administrator title. Again, prior to that, we simply assigned budgetary duties to various individuals within the finance department with financial background, and they either held a accountant type title or something along those lines. But really, it is a specialty. There are special skills required, and our emphasis here is to really try and enhance our budget function and truly enhance the skill, the quality of our budgetary team. So with that, that's the purpose of this series, and it's designed to parallel our generic series, which typically goes administrative analyst, administrative associate, and senior administrative analyst. As you see, the new classifications we're looking at here are budget associate, budget analyst, and senior budget analyst. So with that, that's background more or less on this request. We do have staff here to assist if you have any questions, and Mr. Bob Elliott is here, who's our finance director, and Mr. Jason Bradford is here, who's our budget administrator, and due to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Does this have anything to do with our closed session item?
Yes.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, it's very, very connected.
Okay. Mr. Devine? No questions? No questions. Okay, gentlemen? Yes, sir.
I'm just looking at the different tiers that we have set out here for just specifically for the budget function. I know we currently have a budget item, right, for that specific function. And if we do, is it distinguishable between what we have here and what the city of Glendale right now has? I'm just wondering, as to the function itself, are the functions going to cross at some point, or are there specific classes that are set out right now?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Tomian, I'm not sure what your question is. Right now, as I said earlier, the individuals assigned to the budgetary function are, in fact, they all have the title of administrative analyst. Okay. That is as I said, a generic classification utilized in many different departments. You can be an administrative analyst assigned to parks or public works or water and power. What we're seeking to do is take really, without adding any salary or anything to it, take those individuals who are performing that budgetary function and really put them in a more specialized classification with the title and primary responsibilities relating to budget. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. And following that, if we have these functions set out, so we're giving them specific functions per title, do those functions cross-section one another? That's my question. So is somebody going to be performing out of class at some point? So if we have a senior budget analyst position, for example, is an associate budget analyst at some point going to perform the same function as a senior budget analyst? So are the functions set out and are they distinguishable between each item?
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yes, Commissioner Hatami. Yeah, they are very distinguishable from the associate to analyst to senior analyst. At this point, in the closed session item that we're having pertains really to the budget analyst classification, which is where the current employees are really working at that level. If in the future we need to enhance this or modify this work unit and maybe offer promotion, recognize the need for a higher level position, we might go to the senior budget analyst position. Or if we have a vacancy and we want to hire somebody in at a more entry level we would maybe downgrade that position and select the budget associate classification. But our attempt here is to distinguish definitely between the various levels within this series.
Okay. So long as we've taken steps, I think, to prevent out-of-class bonuses.
Absolutely.
Then okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have a question. Mr. The head of finance department, due to the fact that yeah, thank you. No, you could have sit down. So thank you very much for coming by, stopping by. And then, due to the fact that finance department is a very major, important role of the organization, especially now these days that we are heading towards this economical situation and problem. I'm looking at this chart. By any chance you think that you would like to add any position in order to betterment of the service in the future?
That's absolutely. Can I? No.
It's a dangerous question.
Yeah, wants and needs. We probably have the need for double the staff we have for the budget function right now.
Not that much, I mean.
But the staff we have, we're very grateful in terms of the numbers we have.
We understand that, yeah.
So, really, as Mr. Doyle said, the ability to have a more vertical series for the budget and the flexibility for, in the future when we want to recruit is really what this is about, and recognizing the staff right now and their specialized skill.
Well, good luck to you, and thank you very much for all the work that you're doing for the city. Thank you, sir.
I thought you were going to fund some positions for him.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, gentlemen, what's your pleasure? Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gregorian.
Yes.
Commissioner Devine.
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian.
Yes.
Chairman Ukian.
Yes. What's next?
Class specification for approval, Director of Community Development.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is the approval of the specification for the new position of, a new classification of Director of Community Development. As a little bit of a background, in August 2009, the city underwent a major reorganization, what was formerly known as the Community Development and Housing Department. At that point, several of the functions of that department were combined with other existing departments to form the what we currently call the Community Services and Parks Department. They took on the CDGB programs, the Workforce Investment Act programs, the homeless programs. The Community Planning Department took on neighborhood services and code enforcement functions, as well as building and safety. The Community Redevelopment and Housing Department took on the housing section from the former Community Development and Housing Department. In October of this year, a proposal was put forth and adopted just this week by the City Council to further align various department functions by combining, this time it would be combining the Community Redevelopment and Housing Department along with what we're now calling the Community Planning Department into one, what you call sort of a mega department of community development. And that's more or less where we are right now with this proposal tonight. We're looking at the organizational structure and we have lots of work to do as far as where this is going to end up, but I think we wanted to start out with the top position, which will be called the Director of Community Development, and bring that for your approval at this point. We have Yasmin Beers, our Assistant City Manager, is here if you have questions, and Hassan Hagani, who is currently the Director of Community Planning, is here as well as Amy Martin from my staff, who helped put this draft together. So if you have questions, happy to try and answer them.
Okay. Mr. Devine, you have some questions?
I do have quite a few, if you'll bear with me here.
Absolutely. So, it's all yours.
First of all, I think one of the primary responsibilities of this commission is, in reviewing these job specs and classifications, is to make sure they provide a level playing field for all of the potential candidates who would apply for this position. These particular specs are very, very comprehensive, and I think the staff did an excellent job in putting them together. However, I have some concerns that in certain areas I don't believe they provide a level playing field for some of the potentially eligible candidates. What I'd like to do is share with you some of the thoughts I had as I reviewed this that led to my concern, and then provide some suggestions on how these could be resolved.
Okay.
First of all, if you look at the staff report that Mr. Doyle just referred to, there are 6 departments or sections that make up the new Community Development Department. There's planning, building and safety, neighborhood services, redevelopment, economic development, and housing. And I believe that there are people in each one of those departments that have been absorbed that eventually will be able to apply and be eligible to take the exam for this particular position, if and when Mr. Hagani ever decides to retire.
He better not.
He better not, but we're not looking for that. But anyway, in that eventuality, I reviewed 3 of the main categories in the specs: the definition, the essential functions, and minimum requirements. When I looked at the definitions, I felt that the 6 departments were not adequately represented in the definition. If you'll look at the human resources transmittal letter. They mention, again, the 6 departments: planning, building and safety, neighborhood services, redevelopment, economic development, and housing. When you look at the definition, you'll see that they do not mention the building and safety as one of the sections. They show it as a permit services operation, including building and safety administration, which does not follow or is not parallel to the information that was provided in the transmittal letter. So I believe that needs to be looked at and made to follow the 6 departments that are actually absorbed under the community development. The second thing I looked at were the essential functions. And if you count up all of the bullet points or line items under essential functions, you'll find there are 15 items that address the functions of this new department, or the functions that this director needs to be responsible for. And out of the 15 line items, not one of them addresses the responsibilities of building and safety. All of the functions address only planning, redevelopment, economic development, housing, and neighborhood services. And again, I believe that needs to be addressed, and I'll bring up a suggestion for that.
Okay.
Finally, if you look at the minimum requirements, it shows that there's no mention made of the need for knowledge related to any life safety, code enforcement, and building standards, which again would be under the purview of this new director position. So overall, when I look at the specs, it looks like to me that the essential functions and skill sets focus on items that provide an advantage to people who come from the redevelopment department, the housing, and all of the other functions except building and safety. And I believe that is not fair and equitable to those candidates. So with that in mind, I prepared a little one-page suggestion, made copies for everyone. And I have copies for Amy and Hassan and Yasmin.
That's a very good point. Mr. Doyle, the issue of building safety not being, is it just an oversight, or is this because he's right, it's an essential part of this.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, there was no intent to leave off various elements relating to building safety under the specification. So I would say the suggestions made by Commissioner Devine are valid. We took some painstaking details, at least on the minimum requirements as it pertains to education, training, and experience, to try and mention all of the respective fields. But we probably could have done a better job in the definition, the essential functions, and the knowledge, skills, and abilities. So we have no opposition to enhancing those areas relative to building and safety.
Okay.
Okay, with that in mind, so we're not going to go over all this in detail, but all the highlighted yellow items are things that I would suggest that are added in the various sections to cover that one area. Also, as part of an editorial, I'm under essential functions. They mention the Fire and Safety Board of Appeals, and unless the name was changed from the time I served on that, I think it's called the Building and Fire Board of Appeals. So I think that's an editorial change that needs to be.
Sorry, what page are you on?
Okay, that would be on.
I think it's on.
Under essential functions, page 1 of 3, the last line item says provide staff report to Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, Design Review Boards, Fire and Safety Board of Appeals. And again, I'm not sure, unless you've changed the name of that board.
No, what is
it? Should be the Building and Fire Board of Appeals.
That's correct. It is a Fire and Safety Board of Appeals, the same thing.
No.
No. Build.
No?
Members of the Commission, that is the proper title, so we'd have to amend it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
And finally, again, in addition to the items that are highlighted that I think should be added under Ability 2, that would be on page 2 of 3, the first line item says facilitate and build community, business, and organizational consensus in the visioning, so on and so on. Then if you look at number 6, line item 6 on the next page, 3, in essence says exactly the same thing. So just for clarity and uniformity, I would suggest that they delete on page 3 where it says develop and build lasting consensus about the nature of development, which again repeats the same thing.
6th line from top.
Yeah, 6th line from the top, which repeats the same thing that's said on the first item under ability to. So with that, those are my only suggestions, and I would ask for the Commission to voice their opinion on it.
Completely agree.
Mr. Chair, I just ask the City Attorney, if we accept these changes, should we read them into the record?
We don't have to. We can do it by way of reference in the motion.
Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions or comments? Okay. All right.
Okay, I move for approval of the class specifications with the
proposed changes
as amended by the suggested changes to the text.
Do we have a second?
Well, it's a Christmas time, I'll give a second for the motion. Give a Christmas present to Mr. Levi. That's it.
Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gregorian.
Yes.
Commissioner Devine.
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian.
No. I would need, I think, a little bit more time to consume all this in.
Your vote is no.
Sure.
Continue with the roll call.
Chairman Ukian.
Yes. What's next?
Before we get to that, I'm wondering whether just for an academic reasons, I could ask Mr. Hagani a couple of questions on the org chart. I know we have no purview over it, but just so I can get a better understanding, and perhaps other people may read it, I'm really confused as to who the Assistant Director of Community Development is. And I notice on here you have a position called Assistant Director of Community Development, and then you have a position called Chief Assistant Director of Community Development, and then you have the building official and the Neighborhood Services Administrator. So I'd like to understand how all these interrelate and how many direct reports you have to you, and how many of these people report through either the Assistant Director or the Chief Assistant Director.
Mr. Human Resources Director, please interrupt me if I'm going in the right direction. But I think what you're saying on the organization chart is part what we're inheriting from the two existing departments, and some of those will have to be worked over time. And the one thing that I can tell you we intend to bring before you is, for sure, are two pieces that you'll see on the org chart. One is the Chief Assistant Director of Community Development, which doesn't exist at this point. And if you will, it would mimic what we have in the City Attorney's Office, where there's a Chief Assistant City Attorney, and there are also Assistant City Attorneys. And that would be the way that this organization is supposed to work, with the producing a number two, in essence, that could oversee over time over many different functions and the coordination of the different functions in the new department. The Assistant Community Development Department Director is one thing that we're inheriting from the existing Community Planning Department. We have an Assistant Director of Community Planning, and that position we're going to adjust it so that it'll fit in the new department, but we're not going to change anybody's classification at this moment. We are going to however, have a chief assistant over that person.
Okay, so in essence, this is a work in progress.
This is a work in progress. You should expect to have a package of adjustments to the organization over the next few months, once we actually have clarified the exact direction that the city manager would like us to take. But there'll be some adjustments.
Okay. And when Mr. Hagani goes on vacation for 3 weeks to Hawaii, who at this point
would be
is
the
in
chief
charge?
assistant director, who would be the person in
Chief
charge.
assistant director would
Correct.
be. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the new position that's going to be
That has not been created yet,
Yes,
but
okay.
that's being proposed, yes, at this moment.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Ragane, while you are there, excuse me. So practically, I'm holding this up because for the TV, hopefully. Yeah. So this chart is subject to be changed pretty soon.
That's accurate. This is this chart primarily shows how the two departments in the immediate sense are going to be merged, and we're going to make some adjustments over the next few months that will bring you some proposals. Once we have actually created the department and it's in operation, we will then make some adjustments.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Doyle.
I do want to thank Commissioner Devine for the attention and focus that he put on this. We truly did our best to compile the job functions, the minimum requirements for whatever it is, six or seven different sections all being brought together, and there's no offense whatsoever at the suggestions that were proposed, and I just wanted to say thank you for looking at it with that level of detail.
I think that was something that was just... but I also understand there's a lot of departments, and I'm getting confused just looking at this thing. So, my hat's off to all of you guys. Good luck. Thank you.
Ronnie, might as well you move to Glendale, so we don't.
Thank you, Mr. Hagani.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's next?
Job bulletin for approval, Deputy Fire Chief.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a request to approve a job bulletin for the position of Deputy Fire Chief. As this is a sworn promotional recruitment process, our civil service rules do require that this bulletin be brought specifically to the Commission for approval. This is a position which will essentially establish a number 2 individual within the fire department structure, and our intention is, upon approval by this Commission, to post this bulletin sometime following this meeting and fill this position on a promotional basis. We do have Fire Chief Scoggins here, as well as one of his battalion chiefs, Doyle, here to answer any questions, along with Manya Hunanian, who is the analyst for the fire department. Also, Chairman Ukian had asked at the November 10th meeting for information on really the structure of the fire department. We hear a lot about the police department, and we thought we might be able to take this opportunity to do a little introduction on how the fire department functions and how it's structured. So with that, Mr. Chair.
Fantastic. Chief, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Commissioner. I'm doing well. Harold Scoggins, Fire Chief.
Okay, getting to the bulletin. Are we going to go to that first, or?
We can, if you have questions on the bulletin.
Okay.
This bulletin is a clean replication of the specification for Deputy Fire Chief. We've not modified any of the minimum requirements or education training in any way, so it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Gentlemen, any
I just
questions?
have 2 quick questions. Yes. We probably went over this when we approved, assuming we were the ones that approved the specs, but under experience, what is a chief officer? Would that be like a battalion chief or a...
Commissioner Devine, that would be correct. The chief officer is a battalion chief or above, and it's a management level position.
And what's above a battalion chief other than the deputy chief?
Well, in the organization structure of the Glendale Fire Department, in years past, we've had both assistant chiefs and deputy chiefs. Several years ago, we moved to the deputy chief classification, so currently it would be... currently, we don't have a deputy chief or a battalion chief, so it's basically battalion chief and then fire chief. This will create another layer and assist me in managing the fire department. So it would go battalion chief, deputy chief, fire chief.
Second question, I was just curious, a lot of the specs we review at management level positions, it requires 6 years, 8 years, 10 years experience at the level below, and here you're asking for only 1 year experience. What is the rationale in that?
Well, generally, if one of our chief officers are qualified with the level of education in the classes, they generally have a number of years on the department, and they've worked in a variety of different assignments. And we don't want to not have the opportunity to look at someone if they have a number of years on the job, not necessarily as a battalion chief for an extended period of time, but in the organization, along with all the classes and qualifications. We want to at least be able to take a look at them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Chief, did you want to go ahead and help us with the structure of the
I
department?
think we ought to move on this
okay.
and approve the. So
Okay.
I move for approval of the bullet.
What's second? Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Gregorian.
Yes.
Commissioner Devine.
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian.
Yes.
Chairman Nukian.
Yes. Okay. Chief, thank you very much for coming in. If you want to go into the organization chart, it'll help us better understand the structure of the department.
Absolutely. The Glendale Fire Department is broken up into a number of different operational sections, and you'll see on page 23 an organizational chart that really identifies the different areas of the department. And I'll review that, and I'll give you an overview of each of the sections, and then how this latest change will affect the organizational structure. Basically, in the Glendale Fire Department, we have an operations section, which is the section that the community sees most of the time. Those are the firefighters in the fire engines and ladder trucks responding to emergencies on a daily basis, basically. And we have 3 operational platoons, and they're categorized as A, B, and C shift, basically. So that's our operations section, and we have 57 firefighters on duty each day, with the battalion chief in charge of the city each day. We also have a training section, which is responsible for all of our local, state, and federally mandated training for the organization. What this new position, the deputy fire chief's position, would do, it's now going to give me a deputy chief of operation. What that's going to do is take 4 of our managers and put them under our deputy fire chief, so we can have a better span of control. Right now it's pretty thin, and I think you'll understand that after I go through all the other managers in the organization. We also have a fire prevention bureau, which is led by our fire marshal, and the fire marshal is the manager that reports directly to the fire chief, and they're responsible for all of the fire engineering, the plan checking, the public education, and different things like that that go on in the city. And the fire marshal reports directly to the fire chief. We have 2 administrative battalion chiefs in the fire department. One of the administrative battalion chiefs has assignments such as EMS, disaster preparedness, and our public information officer that reports to that administrative battalion chief. But that battalion chief reports directly to me. And then we have a secondary administrative battalion chief. And that battalion chief is in charge of our information technology needs, our mechanical maintenance needs, our Verdugo dispatch liaison, and our mechanical maintenance needs for the Glendale Fire Department. So they manage all of those functions, and that battalion chief also reports directly to me once again. So I think you can see with the number of managers we have, the deputy chief's going to help me out quite a bit. And then we have our Verdugo Fire Communications Center. We have an executive administrator for Verdugo Fire that reports directly to the 3 fire chiefs, but on a day-to-day basis, I manage it. When I say 3 fire chiefs, I mean Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena, because we are Tri-City partners in the dispatch center. But I think you all know Verdugo Dispatch is housed at Fire Station 21, which means that on a day-to-day basis, it is my responsibility for the management of that center and all the employees, and that administrator reports directly to me. And that person is responsible for the secondary fire and EMS emergency calls that come into the center and dispatch for 12 agencies. And we have over 67,000 calls for service a year in those 12 agencies, almost 1 million in population. So it's quite a busy place up there, and that person does a good job also. And then the last area I'd like to mention is our business support. We have an executive business administrator, which manages all of the financial issues and watches our budget and a lot of different things like that for the fire department, our payroll and our clerical staff and different things like that. And that budget administrator reports to me also. Then we have 2 other positions on organizational chart, an executive secretary who works directly for the fire chief and assists me in the day-to-day things that go on in the organization, and our grants administrative analysts. We have a number of different grants, millions of dollars in grants that we're managing in the organization, and that person is also a direct report to the fire chief. So what this move has done today, it has reduced me from having 11 direct reports, which I think you'd probably be able to imagine is very difficult, to having 7 direct reports, which would be a lot better for me to manage on a day-to-day basis. The operations is the key, because that's where the bulk of our fire personnel are. We have approximately 225 personnel in fire, but 171 of that 225 is in our operations section, staffed in our 9 fire stations, where we have 9 engine companies, 3 ladder truck companies, and 4 rescue ambulances and 1 BLS ambulance. So on a day-to-day basis, whenever a 911 call comes in, there is a response throughout the city from one of those 9 stations. Now, this deputy operations chiefs, if there's what's called a first alarm assignment, where we would have 5 pieces of equipment going to handle that emergency, the operations battalion chief would really handle that situation. But when it goes to what's called a second or third, where we have to bring in more resources, where it really starts to grow large, we need someone who's tactically sound to come in and take over an event, for example, like some of you may remember the fires we've had in Brand Park over the years, the station fire, to handle Glendale specific needs, and someone who can really focus on the incident, so I can focus on the bigger picture of the organization and handling all the fire needs, not just the incident. That was a brief overview. If you'd like me to go into more detail in any of the sections, please let me know.
What's a storekeeper?
A storekeeper is the person who manages the supplies in the fire department. As you can imagine, we basically have 12 facilities that fire really staffs throughout the city. And you need all of the basics, everything from, because we stay there 24/7, you need pots and pans and beds, and we have refrigerators and soap and everything that goes with someone's home. I mean, we live in these facilities 24/7, as well as providing someone who supplies all of our safety equipment, from our turnouts to our gloves to our helmets to our boots, all the things that we really need to stay in business on a daily basis. We have one storekeeper for the department, and that individual is very busy, and he does an outstanding job. And I can tell you that because, as you know, we're kind of dressed up tonight. We've just finished 3 days of inspections throughout every fire department facility, every shift, and it takes 3 days to do that, about 9 hours a day. And I'm really proud of the good work that the men and women of the Glendale Fire Department have been doing over the past years. We know the history. We have a proud history, and I'm glad to let you know it continues on.
Absolutely, Chief. I want to thank you very much. You should be proud of your men and women of the fire department, because we are, and thank you for everything you guys do for the city. You guys do a phenomenal job. That's all I can say.
Can I get a clarification on something? You were talking about putting the new deputy fire chief over the operations, which would relieve you from having to have 4 battalion chiefs report to you.
Yes.
And I thought you said, I may have misunderstood, that under operations, the medical operations also falls under that?
No, not the EMS for the department. We have a battalion chief in charge of EMS specifically, along with disaster preparedness and our public information officer. But we have paramedics in all of our fire stations, and those on-shift paramedics, the ones who work around the clock, our operations battalion chiefs are actually in charge of that platoon. So all the medics on duty today, our EMS chief manages our EMS system for the city, but our operation chief manages the incidents that occur on a daily basis for the city.
Right. I was confused because I had heard that, I guess currently we get more EMS calls or emergency medical calls than we do fire calls. So I was wondering why you would put the deputy over an operation that didn't have the EMS, but you're saying they do that.
Well, the EMS manages license, accreditation, requirements, certification to make sure all of our paramedics are in alignment with LA County and the state, manages our continuing education program for not just our paramedics, but our EMTs in the city. And not only do they manage our EMS program, they manage our disaster preparedness for the city. But in the operations section, if someone calls 911, and let's just say it's a 5-vehicle traffic collision on the 134 freeway at Pacific, and we have 15 patients. Well, our EMS chief doesn't necessarily need to come out there because unless we call for him, but our operations battalion chief, who's handling the tactics and strategy, basically, if you take a look at it from that perspective for the city, that's what that operations battalion chief does. If that incident grows bigger and we need to grow it, and I need to put someone in charge of that incident, it would be the deputy chief, not the EMS chief. The EMS chief may come in and take over the EMS function of the incident, but the deputy would take over the tactics and strategy portion to manage any incident. That's just an example from the EMS perspective.
So when I see under the Administration Emergency Services, at the bottom, ambulance operator 12, EMT coordinator 11, even though these positions are listed under Administration Emergency Services, page 26, are you saying that the operations chief is actually, these people are actually under the operations chief to respond to incidents?
Right. If you look on actually page 26 where you are and you see emergency medical services, and it talks about we have one fire captain who's a paramedic captain, we have one EMS coordinator, one administrative assistant, and 12 ambulance operators. That's our basic life support piece right there. But that's managing the licenses, all the different things that you need there. But under the operations section, if you look at the number of personnel on page 25, under operations and operations training and safety, you see how large the numbers are because our paramedics are included. This is our tactics and strategy piece.
Thank you. That clarifies that. Thank you.
Any questions?
One final question just for me. How long have you been functioning without a deputy fire chief? I'm just wondering.
Well, 2 years ago we had two. We had a deputy chief of administration who handled the fire marshal, all of our admin, BCs, Verdugo dispatch, and we had a deputy operations. So for 2 years, I've been it. And we have had no deputies, and we've made the reductions where we've needed to, and we've done okay. But right now, it's time to get a little bit of help.
I want to personally thank you for your hard work. It must be tough without having a deputy.
I enjoy what I do.
A question, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. Chief, page 26, ambulance operators. You refer this as the paramedic ambulance operator, or just do we have ambulance services throughout the city?
We have 12 ambulance operators, and you're talking about those 12 positions under the ambulance operators?
Is it a position for the future, or now we have?
No, we have them right now. If you remember, in last fiscal year's budget, we had a plan to assist in the budget reductions for the city. And what we did was we did a couple of things. We put a basic life support program in play, and we took out one of our rescues, which was Rescue Ambulance 22. And we offset Rescue Ambulance 22 with a basic life support unit as one of our budget reduction measures. We have to do a few other things behind that. We have to take our dispatch and do tiered dispatching, and what that does is dispatches ALS resources to ALS calls, advanced life support, and BLS resources to BLS calls. Before we did that, we did not have any ambulance operators, so we needed to have an EMT transport unit. So we actually have that in play right now as of last January 27th. This January coming up will be 1 year that we've had a BLS program here in the city of Glendale, and it resulted in a net savings to the city of approximately $800,000 annually by making this change.
Thank you very much, and my compliment to Mr. Chairs that give the opportunity to fire department and for the residents to get the explanation and everything, especially whatever you mentioned today, which is very valuable, very important. Chief.
I think Mr. Devine has a question.
No, I want to talk to you, actually after...
Okay. Not a problem. Chief, thank you very much. Thanks for all your help.
So, Devon, are you inviting Chief for a dinner or anything? I mean, any agenda?
What's next?
Agenda forecast.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item before you is the agenda forecast. It shows what we know of occurring for our upcoming meeting agendas. The next meeting is on January the 12th, and anticipate, as of now, a rather light agenda at this point.
Okay.
Then following that, we have the meeting on the advertising budget, and imagine various things will pop up between now and then. The note and file item.
Okay. What's next?
Reports and information.
Mr. Doyle?
Reports and information. The only item we have for this would be our past due employee performance evaluation report.
Okay. Sorry, bear with me. There we go. Okay.
Just to remind the Commission, this is an item that was brought to you really at the request of the Commission several years ago, back in the days of Commissioners Coleman and Apkarian, to really enforce a need for our performance evaluation system to make sure that they all get filed and turned in a timely manner. We have over close to 2,000 employees who are subject to this performance evaluations, and we try and do our best within the HR department to manage that. And again, the Commission had requested that you be notified of those departments that have past due performance evaluations. And there's really three levels, the first notice, the second notice, and the third notice. And again, to remind the Commission, anytime there is an evaluation that is so late that it's gone to a third notice, Commission policy had been to have that department head appear to explain the reason for the late performance evaluation. As you can see from this report, there are a number of first notices and a few second notices, but overall, the organization does pretty well in getting these in on time. So,
absolutely.
If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen? Okay. What's next?
Civil Service Commission or staff comments.
Okay. Gentlemen, comments? I just basically wanted to say this is going to be, I guess, our last meeting before the New Year's, so I want to wish everybody Happy New Year and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Any other comments? Okay. What's next?
Closed session.
Okay. Are we going to be reporting out from this?
We are.
We are. Okay. We are now going to go